Great. Thank you so much. So I have a question for folks real quick. So, hearing this presentation, for the folks that work at water utilities, do your staff and your customers, your staff or your customers as well, see these events as an outlier or as part of life now? And how have you all changed your communication strategies with your customers and kind of operations as a result, if that's the case?
I think I'll try it. I think when you have events like this in the water utility, you try your best to always be prepared for everything you can. So we brainstorm different situations to make the status quo of the same type of day occurring. We always think of what could happen if a pump goes out, or if we have a main break over here, or if we don't have rain for a long time, what are our water conservation strategies? I mean, all those types of things, we're always brainstorming. You do your best to plan for the crazy events. Like I said on this one, the winter storm event, we may not see that for 100 years. But what's the next thing? So we're always thinking, okay, if it's a tornado, if it's a drought, if it's a whatever, we're always trying to talk about that so our employees are positioned. In this example, for me, the employees, like I said, we're freaking out, but our employees had complete confidence because they were trained up and they knew what they needed to do. They never panicked, and they just took care of business. So at the end of the day, employees make the difference, and you do your best to have them trained and planned for any event. And you have to be flexible in the utility industry, I would say, because you never know what the next event's going to be.
So I'll go next. I'm currently feeling like we're still in the thick of it. So I haven't had a chance to kind of come up for air to kind of reevaluate what changes will occur. I think that we definitely saw all of our staff step up, not only our conservation staff, but across the district, doing outreach events and, assisting customers through finding leaks and water waste patrols and, all the various activities, because it was bigger than just our, conservation team. And I think that's what water utility folks do, right? They kind of come together. There's a reason why you're in these types of jobs, to work with your community. And I think that what we saw for the drought response is that we absolutely saw folks step up, and I'm sure changes will come as a result of it. Fortunately, you guys have had a year to contemplate. Maybe next year I'll have a better answer.
Oh, I would just say that, yes, SAWS has really made a focus on proactive communication for preparedness during the months that followed. Obviously, Michael spoke to, at the utility level, a lot of focus and exposure on being prepared. But for us with our customers, we're always looking for new ways to engage them. And this was another opportunity to learn about what really does resonate with them and how can we better communicate with them and have that trust with the public.
Great, thank you. This is a specific question for Carrie. I'm sure folks are we've been thinking about this here too, but what types of parameters, when you're talking about non-functional residential turf, what parameters are you talking about when you present this to your committees and board? And it also says, understanding this is open for discussion and you're still working it through it. What are your team's initial thoughts of non-functional residential turf and what that means?
Yeah, so we have a neighboring water utility that limits residential turf areas, both front and backyards, total on site, to 800 square feet. So it's, kind of looking at something like that as far as new development and code for new connections or remodels or landscape plan reviews, etc. But as far as existing turf, right, that's where it becomes a bigger challenge, is how do we convince our customers that the look and feel of the landscapes within their community does not need to have turf. And it's going to be a shift in perception, and it's not going to happen overnight. And it's really going to be on the district and our partners to clearly demonstrate that there are better and other and beautiful ways to have low water use landscaping, and that, you know, if you only walk on your grass to mow it, you probably don't need it. But it's going to be a challenge, right? But so at this point, we're looking at just limitations on square footage. We have a lot of hillsides, but mostly tiered hillsides, right? Not blunt cliffs. But then no backyard, right? So we can't just say no front yard lawns like Southern Nevada Water Authority has done. The other way to look at it might be types of irrigation, right? Banning spray irrigation, which really promotes drip, and then would drive folks to using either subsurface drip for turf if that's what they wanted to have, then, or, you know, low water use plant material. So at this point, kind of everything's on the table. We're looking at from best programs that are out there for models we can you know, leverage and utilize and build off of.
Great. And a follow up to that, Carrie, is the relationship between outdoor irrigation, or if there's a relationship, and fire prevention. I know you all have to deal with fire, and that is one of the, besides drought, flood, extreme cold, fire is one that is looming out there in the distance, but we haven't had huge issues with it here, with the exception of east of Austin and Bastrop County, but it definitely is another thing we have to think about and plan for. So if you are limiting outdoor irrigation, are you impacting fire preparedness? How do y'all deal with that relationship?
Yeah, we work really closely with our fire responders. So we have wildland urban interface throughout our watershed, right? You think about you have, you know, just this, you know, thousands and thousands of acres of forest essentially right up against residential communities. And so during the drought, what we did was we just worked actively with our fire inspectors who actually go out to folk sites and talk to them about what type of plant material they should be putting in. And you know, there's a direct correlation. We feel that it's not mutually exclusive, right? So you can have a low water use landscape and be fire smart. And just getting that message out there is really important. We actually did a focus group, again, trying to figure out what will resonate with our customers, especially those high water using customers that, you know, use 5,000 gallons a day. I mean, these are folks that are just completely unaware about how much water they're actually using and where it goes. One thing that they said is they didn't care about their water bill, but they did want to support their community in fire response. And so that really gives us a leverage of like, okay, so how can we message the coordination between and the opportunity to have low water use landscape that is fire resistant to build that community engagement. So more to come. We've actually had events like this in Northern California around fire and drought. So it's good that you guys are doing drought and freeze, the other sorts of extremes. It's interesting.
Thank you. This is a question for the folks that talked about the Winter Storm Uri, but it goes to messaging and education for customers, and what's required to prepare for winter weather at home. That they go on to say that it seems like a lot of Texans don't understand what's required for pipe dripping and storing emergency water supplies. For instance, do all pipes in a home need to drip at once? What temperatures is this really necessary, et cetera? How are we working to get folks educated to reduce water demand during future storms? And I know I've seen a lot of examples of that out in social media leading into the most recent cold event we had. But I guess let's go to Michael and Chad on that.
Yes. So when you have an event like this, you when it's all over, you go back and say, okay, where were all the questions coming from? What did the citizens or customers need help with? And there were quite a few. So we use our website and other things to kind of address those. You know, the first one I think was in Chad's presentation about the private shut off versus the public. So many folks did not know how to shut their water off if they had a break or whatever. So that was one instance that we've added some things to our websites to help customers. The dripping of the faucets was another big one. People didn't know what to do. I would say if you have an event like this, you know, get some I hate to say this, bottled water maybe at the store just to have in your house for an emergency. I'm not a fan of bottled water ever. The faucet's better. And then the dripping, you know, I'm not sure I know the answer if you need to drip every faucet, but I definitely would drip the faucets that are probably near your exterior of your house. On the inside, I would drip those. Outside faucets, recommended those covers is what we kind of recommended, but dripping the faucet a little bit is not going to use a ton of water, even if you have 5 or 6 faucets dripping slowly. So we go back and we talk about those things, and then we try to address them in our social media and in our communication efforts to help citizens, because there is a lot of confusion when the actual event hits. You have to do it ahead of time to get ahead of it.
I would agree that we're trying right now at SAWS to be, like I said in my presentation, the Be Ready campaign is a proactive approach by our communications team, partnering with conservation to educate through videos, social media, incentive-based rebates, opportunities to engage with our customers and help educate them, but you're not trying to overwhelm them at the same time. So our communications team has really made some cool videos that are easy to understand and try not to overwhelm you with what you're trying to communicate. You can get in the weeds really quickly trying to explain plumbing terms. So there's an important part of this, which is know when to call a plumber. know what you can do, which is simple, basic steps to be prepared for a winter event. And we've got a really good, robust email process in conservation that we have a very large contact list. So we've got some tools in place that really help us be prepared to communicate with customers as needed.
Thank you. Stacy, do we have any questions in the room? And I
Yes.
know we're blowing right through our break. I'm sorry
We
about
are.
that.
So yeah, we're gonna stop in just a few minutes here and take a 10-minute break. But right before we do that, does anyone in the room have any questions that they want to ask? Okay, let me bring the mic thing over. So the virtual people can hear you.
Carrie, this is a question for you. You mentioned that you guys established excess use penalties for over, I think you said 65 GPCD. How did you guys know how many people were in a house?
Oh, the details. So 65 GPCD is basically our tier 1, assuming 3 people per household. So it was, so for us, we can talk about GPCD because it's meaningful to us, but to our customers, they could use tier 1 water. Residential customers could use tier 1 water without penalty. It just and on average, just 3 people per household.
Anyone else have any quick questions for any of our panelists in the room?
This is for John. For the people who communicate your data, what kind of problems do they what kind of problems do they see when trying to communicate that there is an increase in rainfall in some areas, but an increase in drought in others? And I feel like that might be confusing to some people. So if there is any problems with communicating that to the public.
Yeah, thanks. It's very confusing because people think of drought as being just simply tied to rainfall, and that's your experience. So if it's a low rainfall year, then it could be a drought year. If it's high rainfall, then it's not drought. For California, it's snowfall for the most part, although Marin County is a special case in that regard. So yeah, we have to. I have to focus on the extremes and say, if even if we have the same amount of rainfall, if it's more concentrated, we have bigger gaps, then it becomes droughty. And if we have higher temperatures, then we get more drought. And while not every place in the world is going to have both more droughts and more floods, Texas is sort of in that sweet spot where we can get more of both. So I try to reinforce that their intuition does have value, that it's not normal to have more droughts and more floods at the same time, but if you have the right combination of factors, it works that way.
I'll just add in Sonoma or in Marin County, we have, so this last year, so far we've had about 48 inches of rainfall. Our average is 51, so pretty close. But if we don't get any more rainfall, we will be in a drought, right? And so even though we'll be at average, there still is, it's timing is really what it comes down to.
Carrie, very quick one. You said you're looking towards the future on replanting. What are your thoughts on what are you going to be recommending and who are you working with
Yeah.
to make those?
Yeah, that's a good one. It's extensive. So we have a watershed approach to landscaping book that we published 4 or 5 years ago. So we'll be leaning on that as far as models. I'm working with our Native Plant Society. We're looking at expanding our turf rebate program to offer the $3 if folks are willing to do, the best management practices, like sheet mulching their lawn, installing a alternative water source, so rainwater or gray water on their site, and using all natives. That would get the $3. Otherwise, they would have a lower rebate for lesser environmentally conscious kind of conversions. We will have the qualified water efficient landscaper training, our local landscape contractors association. We have nursery signs. We're doing pick the right plant, right place sort of advertising. So really any way we can touch our customers where they're going out and pursuing information on replanting, we want to be there and have opportunity to guide them. Again, recognizing they're not coming to us to get this information. So we need to find ways to make sure that we get it in front of them to be useful. So there's a whole replanting page on our website with a ton of information if anyone's so inclined to take a look. I'm open to suggestions and improvements if you see something missing.
Great, thank you so much. We're gonna have to take a break. I'm sure there are probably more questions from the virtual audience, and if all of the panelists, if you can join virtually, and if there's a question directed to you, look at that, and we'll also try to type responses. But if I think there's a couple of questions directed to specific people.